We read this morning in the papers, partly from NatWest Bank survey, but also other general research, that the poorest 25% of the population face a £1,200 hit this year, while 2.5 million more people are heading to be paying higher rate taxes because the thresholds have been frozen by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I mean, that is a complex, double-sided nightmare, isn't it?
It is, though the solution to the first lies partly in the second. If we're going to help the poorest, we probably have to do so by reinstating the £20 a week social security payments, the universal credit amount, which was there for the duration of the pandemic, was rightly ended at the end of the pandemic, but this problem is probably even more of a burden for the poorest families than was the pandemic itself, so it's probably got to be reinstated. But at the same time, the government's seeing a huge increase in its tax revenues, partly because more people are going into higher levels of tax, but also because of the tax they're getting on higher priced goods. So they've got the money to do that. So I don't think the situation is as insoluble as some people suggest. There will be pain because as a whole, the economy is able to buy less from abroad than it could before, because those things that it buys from abroad, energy and food, are more expensive. So overall, we're going to be worse off.
Sure.
But we can shuffle it around a bit and reduce taxes.
Yeah, fascinating. It surprises me slightly to hear you say that, and I remind folk that we've known each other for a long time and talked about these things in the past. The whole point about the threshold is that it also sends out a signal to somebody in the squeezed middle, as it were, because we're talking about people who are earning 35, 40 grand a year, saying, you work harder, you put in an extra shift, you put in those extra hours, you'll earn a little bit more, and poof, we'll have some more of it. The huge advantage of increasing those thresholds as much as possible is to say, work hard, put in the hours, and you know what, you can keep even more of it. Where's that gone?
Well, I certainly want to see that. And we're in a position, actually, to relax the pressure on incomes, taxes on incomes, the national insurance charge, that the Chancellor couldn't foresee when he had his budget. He didn't realise how much extra revenue he was going to get. Or if he did, he didn't take it into account. So I think he's in a position to ease some of the squeeze he was putting on people. And he needs to, because there's another squeeze coming from elsewhere and abroad. Yeah. In the long run, yes, we want to see lower tax rates across the board.
Yeah, but you would go along, and you're too good a politician not to know what the backdrop to the story is. It's Labour that's calling for an emergency budget. That makes it very difficult for a Conservative Chancellor to agree to an emergency budget because it'll look like an open goal score for Labour.
Well, I don't think that worries too much. If he does...
That's a fascinating answer. So the problems, as you say, keep those thresholds where they are so the tax revenue comes in, so that Peter Lilley can say we need to restore the £20 a week universal credit boost.
I think possibly you can actually withdraw some of the tax increases that have been announced and still have enough extra revenue to reinstate for a time the £20 a week. Obviously, I'm a former Social Security Secretary, so perhaps that's why I look at that £20 a week as the natural option. There may be other ways of doing it, but that seems to me the natural option of helping the poorest.
Yeah, fascinating.